Welcome back. This afternoon, you're listening to the Todd Laborowitz Show, Real Estate Radio on Salem Broadcast Network, WRC 1260 AM. I am your host, Todd Laborowitz, and we're speaking to Max Levitt, who's founder and executive director of Leveling the Playing Field. Welcome to the studio, Max.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit more about your mission and your story about the Leveling the Playing Field.
So the mission is really to expose underprivileged kids to youth sports. There are a lot of financial barriers that a lot of these kids face if they want to play youth sports, and especially here in Montgomery County. The only way you're going to play youth sports in Montgomery County is with BCC baseball, MSI soccer, COA, all these private sports leagues. And it's happening all across the country.
And it costs a lot of money.
It costs a lot of money. I mean, the days of public sector sports is gone. You go look for Montgomery County sports, it's really just basketball, and other than that, they don't offer sports anymore because families in this area are willing to pay a lot of money to get their kid to BCC baseball and have the nice fields and the jerseys and everything else.
What do they typically go for? I'm just asking because I'm a new parent myself, so
hundreds of dollars,
okay.
and that's not even taking into account the transportation and the equipment that you need to play. So when the story of why I started this and why I started finding a solution to this issue was I spent 3 seasons working in college sports at Syracuse University with the football program. Also spent time in recreation and in professional football with the Redskins and I worked in equipment. So everywhere I went, I noticed a huge amount of equipment going to waste. I mean, we were throwing away boxes of footballs at the end of the season. The reason for that is all these universities, whether it's as small as like a Goucher College or as big as an Alabama football program, they all have contracts with the manufacturer. So at Syracuse, our contract with Nike for football was $2 million, which basically means you have $2 million to spend this season. It doesn't roll over. It's $2 million to spend on the Nike product for that year. So we're getting new footballs, new cleats, everything new. I mean, we might as well. It's free. And in order to make room in the equipment room, we're tossing everything into the dumpster out back. It's hard for us as a school to donate the equipment because of recruiting violations. So, Syracuse University would donate all their basketballs to Carmelo Anthony's school in Baltimore, whether the school needed it or not. So the school would... They wouldn't follow the rules. It would be bad. So the rule makes sense, but if a nonprofit like mine goes to the school, asks for the equipment, and also determines where it goes, then they can make the donation. So just in general, I started seeing that there wasn't a whole lot in place for this equipment to go. I mean, all these private schools in Montgomery County and DC, all the rec leagues, all the families, there's just a lot of equipment out there that goes to waste. And one of the major expenses that families in the inner city face when getting their kid involved in baseball, soccer, whatever, is equipment. They say, okay, you want to play soccer? How much is it going to cost to get the equipment, even to consider it, not even taking into account the registration fees? And it's like, oh, it's $250 to get my kid who's growing his first set of soccer gear. We barely can put food on the table or pay our rent. We're not going to do that. And the way I look at it is that, so 1 in 5 underserved families aren't getting their kids involved because of the price of equipment. There's no reason those families should have to buy the equipment.
But what are you connecting to? You have the universities and the professional teams donating the equipment?
So we get from professional teams, yes. Not as much professional teams. That equipment is very big. A lot of kids aren't going to fit into that stuff. If there's a high school program that asks, yeah, it's possible. But most of the stuff we get are from the private schools, middle school, elementary schools, and high schools, like, for example, a Bullis or a St. Albans or a St. Andrews, where they are getting new equipment every year because they can afford it, and why not? And a lot of them do also have contracts with, St. John's High School College in D.C. has a contract with Under Armour. They get new stuff from Under Armour every year. In all these rec leagues, BCC baseball, MSI, they have thousands of families that have garages filled with equipment that the kids are outgrowing, cleats, gloves, shin guards, whatever. So we'll run collections at some of their games. We'll go to the Maryland Soccerplex. For example, if you've been to the Maryland Soccerplex, it's the biggest sports complex I've ever seen in my life. They have about 4,000 families come through on a weekend. So they'll publicize to those 4,000 families, hey, Leveling the Playing Field is going to be out here with a truck. If you want to empty out your garage and your closet, your backyard, bring your stuff, we'll fill a truck in a couple hours.
And how long have you been doing this?
It's been around for 3 years. And really in the last year, it's really just taken on a life of its own. People, the vision was, we want people in the DC Baltimore area to think of leveling the playing field in the same way they think of like a Man of Food or a Wider Circle, in that if we have sports equipment to donate, there's an option out there. We don't have to throw it away. We don't have to just let it sit around in the garage. There's now a place that we can send it to. In the last year, we've really started to see a lot of inbounds, a lot of phone calls coming in unsolicited from family, schools, rec leagues saying, hey, we're doing inventory, we're cleaning out a garage. We heard about you. Can we schedule a time for you to come out and pick up our equipment? And
how's the supply and demand going with people? Is there more equipment than kids to give away, or is there more kids that need equipment?
Currently, there currently more comes in than goes out, which isn't to say there's not demand. I mean, we have enough so if you want to receive equipment from us, and we'll donate to youth programs, Title I schools. There's a lot of like little league baseball teams or neighborhood football leagues in inner city Baltimore and DC. So they'll write us a grant application, and we have enough that there's some that I haven't even read over yet because there's just no point. I'm still fulfilling the other ones that we have. But for whatever, probably a result of the fact that there are a lot more wealthy people in this area, and the equipment just comes in extremely quickly, which is fine. It's a great thing. And it makes it really easy for me to fulfill these grant applications when they come in. I mean, we have everything they need that day, basically. It's just the logistics of getting the stuff over to them and when they're ready to receive it. That just takes some time. But I would say supply is ahead of demand, but demand is really high. Yeah. For sure.
Well, by the way, if you're just tuning in, I have with me Max Levitt, founder and executive director of Level the Playing Field, Inc. I am your host, Todd Laborowit, and you are listening to Salem Broadcast Network, WRC 1260 AM. Now, is this an incorporation or is this a nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit.
So there's no Inc.
It can still be, we're still incorporated. You have to be an incorporated business first, and then you apply for your tax exemption status.
Okay, got it. So moving forward, as far as your demographics, what areas are you helping kids out? Is it just Maryland? Are you in Virginia?
It's between Northern Virginia and Baltimore.
Are you looking to expand if your supply gets higher?
We have donated in 7 states, so we will get grant applications from from Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. We've done some stuff down in North Carolina, but again, we're not marketing our services over there. Our focus right now, because we are a young organization, is let's build this model to a perfection as a local nonprofit in the DC Baltimore area. And once it's perfected and we really tweak everything and have it down where we feel comfortable, because obviously supply and demand is great right now. It's perfect. It's 5 years ahead of where I thought it would be at this point. But again, as a nonprofit, you have the third aspect, which is fundraising. We're not selling our equipment. We have some revenue sources, but most of it is fundraising. And that does take longer than supply and demand comes. People are more willing to empty their garages and donate product than they are to open up their wallets. So once we perfect that model with the financial model, I think this is something that can be applied to any metropolitan area, any area where there are very, very rich areas and very, very poor areas right around the corner, like you see in a DC. I mean, you're in Bethesda, great place. I mean, everyone is extremely wealthy. You go 15, 20 minutes to Germantown and Gaithersburg, you're going to see a lot of people who are struggling. So any area that's like that, this can work. It can definitely work, and there's no reason kids out there should not be playing sports because of the equipment issue. I mean, there's so much out there.
So you're making a huge difference in the community, and you really are leveling the playing field. Now, you said in a story, it says, if it wasn't for football and my coach, I would be in jail now. Football saved my life. Where's that from?
That was from one of the players on the Syracuse University football team. He actually currently plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he came from just a really, really tough upbringing. And for a lot of these kids, they don't have a lot of role models in their life. The chips are stacked against them. One of the greatest ways to hook them into youth development is sports. A lot of them aren't going to just start learning youth development because a math teacher tells them something or someone tries to get them involved with science. It works for some kids, but a lot of kids in these inner cities, the way to hook them into an after-school program is with football, soccer, basketball.
Now, tell me some stories where you've made a difference. I hear the concept and how it works, but tell me some real-life stories.
Yeah, so I'll give one that's pretty local. In Rockville, Maryland, there has been an issue with a lot of Latin youth getting involved in drugs and alcohol and some gang involvement, and the city of Rockville started a program to try to combat that. And, there wasn't a lot of funding for it. A lot of these kids weren't coming because there wasn't much attracting them to it. So they started a whole soccer program. They said, oh, these kids love soccer. The best way to get them involved in our drug and alcohol prevention programming is through the game of soccer. So the only way that they were able to do that and get these kids equipped to do that was by coming to us. And, they weren't able to throw a couple of $1,000s at the issue and buy cleats and soccer balls and goals and all this stuff. And by coming to us, we were able to, make sure they had all the equipment that they need, made sure they were able to start this program. I think now they have over 50 kids coming 5 days a week. Instead of going home and ending up on the street after school, they're now spending 2-3 hours on the soccer field or in the classroom, depending on the day. And it makes a lot of difference. It's hard for these programs to start up when they have to spend thousands of dollars on equipment. Yeah, so if you wanna help out, if you have equipment to donate, if you want to get involved, either visit our website www.levelingtheplayingfield.org, where you can call our offices 301-801-0738.
And that number again?
301-801-0738.
Well, great. Max Levitt, founder and executive director of Leveling the Playing Field and looking out for our kids in the future. Well, much success to you and your organization.